Welcome to our next talk on writing women into history. I'm delighted to have with me today Val Leivers, who gave an extremely interesting talk to International Women's Day a couple of years ago.
We call our project now India Unseen because it's really me. And working with the help of Rotary, I'm a Rotarian. I've been a Rotarian for 25 years. And um, in 2004, my husband went out to India, Andhra Pradesh, which is now Andhra and Telangana. They split the state. And within that state, that is one district within Rotary. And there are 80 million people in that one district, compared to in our district, which is just Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, a little bit of Leicestershire, a little bit of Lincolnshire. So tremendous number of people. And he was with 4 young professional people, and they spent a month looking at their own jobs, but also traveling around the district, which is a vast area, looking at many projects and what was needed and how things happen within India. He came back, spoke to me, and the following October, he went in January, following October, took me out. The first thing that is very obvious is fresh, clean drinking water. Without drinking water, and this is a typical site in the slums and mainly the tribal, I'm working in the tribal villages, some slums, but this is a site you see often, a small child, and that's the water they're drinking. Without clean drinking water, health issues, maternal issues are an absolute nightmare. So we decided that the first thing we'd really got to try and do was actually, where water was available, was to put in bore wells. Now, not every village can have a bore well, but luckily in that area, there is a lot of underground water. So bore wells was a possibility. So we set off and we decided this is a typical in the village. Young girls, the girls do most of the things, doing the washing with the dirty water that you've just seen. And of course, although they're cleaning the clothes, they're drinking that water. The animals use the water. The pigs, everybody gets in the water. They use it for washing. So it was very important. So we managed to do 251 villages within the area with a bore well. And the bore well will last approximately 15 to 20 years with clean potable water. The main thing that interested me also, of course, I'm a teacher, was the fact that the women and the young girls are spending all their time walking, spending hours and hours a day walking to get water. So it really meant they didn't go to school. Now, this is a site that was absolutely superb. When I saw her little girl, she's now on her way to her village school. There is the water, clean drinking water in the village. The difference it's made is tremendous. Can't tell you how much it's helped. Working within the villages, we've been able to do this. This is in Kerala. These people in Kerala had water, but they had to spend 3 hours walking to fetch it, 3 hours walking back. The government gave them a certificate, which she's holding in her hand, but the water was nowhere near where they lived, and they lived in small areas. These are very poor areas, no water, just filthy, dirty, dried up village beds. A lot of these places had water at one time, no longer got water. So we actually, what the project was to actually put a pipeline, and in each house, in each little place in these cantonment areas, they've now got a water tap. So they've got their own water tap, which is clean drinking water. I've drank this water with no side effects. My husband's not as brave as me, I think, and he never ever will taste the water. He's very wary of it all. But he has had dengue and 1 or 2 other things while he's been there. So this was another way of getting water. Everywhere you go, you notice that the women are working alongside the men, and often a lot of the men, daily labourers, disappear from the villages, go off to work, and sometimes they don't come back for weeks, months. So the women are left to really do everything within the village. So they are very much on their own, looking after the children. I'm never quite sure when the family's going to come and when there's going to be money and when they'll be able to buy food. But these are all farmers, and again, very reliant on weather conditions And if the crop fails, the crop fails. One day we were there, they just got all the chilies out to dry, and the heavens opened, so the chilies were ruined. Now that is the crop ruin for the year, and this is how difficult it becomes. Building everywhere you go, you see the women working alongside the men. The women tend to be the labourers, and you can imagine how heavy these bricks are. But again, they are beautifully dressed, and people, when you show them photographs, say, well, you know, they don't look poor. No, they don't look poor, but they perhaps have this sari and one other. But again, they just get on. The women in the villages work hard. They work alongside the men, and it's quite different than when we're working in the cities, which is it's quite a different way of life. Village life is very, very hard. Paddy fields where they've got water. Again, this was in the Kerala area and some areas in Hyderabad, but most of the paddy in most of our villages now has dried up. So that's a crop that's been lost, and it was a very valuable crop because paddy, they get the rice twice a year. That no longer happens, but luckily in this area, in Kerala area, they've still got plenty of water, so rice is very, very important. Having moved on from there, you know, look at, again, this is another example of what you see on a regular. These are Lombardy Indians. A lot of the tribal people have come down from Rajasthan originally. Very, very proud people, and they wear this incredible dress. Very difficult to get into a tribal village, but luckily working with the local people out there, been very fortunate to be able to get into the village. And really what we're doing is looking to see what do they actually need. Obviously water, but again, later on we talk about was really schooling, trying to use what, and every time, not setting up new projects, but looking at what have they got, how can we utilize that, how can we make it so it's the life is better for them, and giving them the respect that they are doing something for themselves, because I think very strongly about that. The other thing that was very apparent was the way some people were living. We've seen pictures of the slums from Pat's, and they just really exist. A lot of these were existing in bits of blue plastic. Now, blue plastic is used a lot for construction, so you're constantly seeing people living under blue plastic or very poor conditions. The Indira Gandhi, as was through the government, were giving land to below poverty, and within the villages, through contacts, managed to get through to the village elders, and working with them, the land deed, and this is what this is, a land deed was given, and it was given to the women. The women have got the land, enabling them to build a shelter, build a house. Unfortunately, they could never get together the money to build. So decided, I was then district governor at the time, after 62 years of men, I had a lady, and I'd used that to everything I could to help these people. So this young lady, this is pregnant with her first child. She's got the deed to the land. So we were able to go back and raise funds and say to people, why not sponsor a house? And for £600, we managed to build. They managed to build. They had to build their own houses. Nobody was given any money. They were given the materials. It is very, very important that we keep control on every penny, as Pat said. It's very difficult when people have absolutely nothing. It's easy to say, well, we'll have a little bit here. In the villages, they used actually handmade bricks, if it was appropriate to their village, or the local stone or local materials. We managed, in 5 tribal villages within the area, we managed to build 115 houses, which in each house were often extended family. The whole family pitch in to help build them. They can only go to the below poverty line. They cannot sell them. They are allowed to live in them. Generations can live in them. If they want to move away from the village, then the house will be given to somebody else in the village. This is quite a good house, but there were about 18 people living in this house. No water, no toilets. If you haven't got water in the village, you can't have toilets. And to be honest, it's much more hygienic to go out into the fields. But unfortunately, sometimes in India, it's not safe for women and girls to be out in the fields. We've seen some terrible things that happen. So this was what we started with, and working with local people in Rotary and the local villagers, which was important because they're going to be the ones that maintain and look after these. We managed to build, the next slide should be what we managed to produce with their £600. Now that is amazing. People, when I show them, say that is incredible. They were allowed to say whether they wanted one big room or what they wanted, how they wanted the inside. And a lot of them, we changed the roofs, which they were using big stones on, which were useless because they rolled off. These are steel and brick or stone. These have been cemented over the top. And a lot of them now have gone up onto the roof. But they've been able to own their own houses, and the plaque on the side indicates that what it says is the beneficiary's share was paid for by. It doesn't say anything about how much or anything. And this has given them a beautiful home to live in, and the way they've improved them. And I go back on a regular basis so I can check that they're still there and they're as they should be. Moving on, my big love, of course, is schools. And a lot of the girls did not go to school in the villages because they were busy. Some were working, some were out in labour, some were working in some of the towns nearby. And we managed to work with a project to get some of the girls saved, working with the police, out of bonded labour. Families who are large families who really can't manage to feed the children, we're actually bonding them out to some of the big hotels for 8 years, and then people give them money. People criticise that, but when you cannot feed your family, you will do anything to try and save your family. This is a school, it's in Hyderabad, and these children were actually they were building the metro, and they were living under the metro. It always amazes me how incredibly, superbly turned out these children are when you see where they come from. And initially we started just giving them basic equipment, making sure they've got teachers, and also desks and benches. Most of the children that I saw were always sitting on the ground. Fine, you can sit on the ground, but as you get older, it's not easy to sit on the ground. And so we worked on, and have now got tens of thousands of children sitting on desks and benches. This is a school, one of the projects which I've spent a lot of time doing. This is in one of the biggest slums in Secunderabad, the Vidyarthi High School. And it started off with a shack. There were about 100 children in this shack. It rained. When it rained, it was very, very noisy and everybody got wet. When it was hot, it had a tin roof. It was unbelievable. It is now a 5-story building, correctly built. We've now just, a lot of these children don't get any breakfast, don't get any lunch. So we now started school meals, and that's me eating school meals. I feel all the time I try to do whatever I ask the children to do or anybody to do, I lead by example. And that food was very basic, very good, but very, very good food. And I eat it every day. I live in the slum. I live on top of the school. So I live with the families. I live within the families. And what I've tried to do is adopt their ways, listen to their cultures, understand where they're coming from. That is why I dress like I dress, which they do like. Try to learn Telugu, which is very, very difficult. Hindi is easier. But all the time, if I understand who I'm working with, I can help them better. This is, notice on the ground here, it says respect, and it says respect the women. I'll come back to that later. Within this school now, they've got, there are 1,500 children. They do pay a very small amount, those that can pay. The rest of them sponsored. At the moment, I've just got 33 sponsored, because I know that if the sponsorship is not paid, I have got to raise the funds to pay it. And you cannot say to a child, no, you can no longer go to school. Other pictures within the school, the first picture you saw was I was teaching the teachers. These are all qualified teachers, and a lot of them have been starting initially in the school when they started it in 1990. and 3 of them are now back with master's degrees teaching in the school. Equal girls, equal boys, and they are treated, it is run like an English grammar school. Why a grammar school? I think that's how the English saw us when they were doing, we were out there, we set schools up. These girls have equal opportunities. They have a voice. They are able to work alongside sort of the men, and we're working very, very hard within the school to make the boys understand and respect the sisters, the women in the school. There are say 1,500 of them, and this school won an award this year from the government as one of the best schools in this area of education, for the education it provides. Right. These classrooms, there was nothing here. They were just, it was just a dirty shack. This is now what we've done. We've turned this in. This is a auditorium almost. It's also a library, and they have got a designated science lab. Now it's very, very unusual to see a library and a science lab. This particular area seats 100 people, and you can see on the back wall there is a window. And this last year when I was there, I looked again, what do they actually need? What will help them to achieve what we were trying to achieve? So we bought an enormous television set because they can use YouTube. And once they've got that, they can access any subject. As we know, it's really opening to the world. All the teachers in this school are women. You very rarely see in these sort of schools, you very rarely see any male teachers at all. Although it is equal boys and girls. My aim now is to try and extend, if I can, or build. We cannot build the Rotary money, so we've got to raise the money to build it, to do a college to hang on to these girls when they leave school at 16, so they don't get forced into a marriage. It's very, very difficult to stop that. This is another area that I work in. This is an ashram. This is out in the middle of nowhere virtually. It's out in the countryside. This is 26 kilometers from the main road. These are all tribal village children, and one man set up this school. We've built, I've built 2 of these complete units, and they wanted to put the children, initially the children were in uniform, and they wanted to get them into uniform because uniform matters quite a lot to children in India, and the staff into uniform. The staff wouldn't wear it. So I said to him, give me one. So I wear it. And initially, again, they followed. They understand if Valmar, they call me, is willing to do it, why can't we? And again, these boys and girls are getting an education. These children would never normally get a chance to go to school. And we're getting people now which have had to go into the city because they're now 16, are now going on to college. And hopefully we're going to get some of them. Once somebody from a village gets a university and goes back into the village changes tremendously. And a lot of the other work I've done is improving schools within the village to enable them, to bring them up to a standard, give them clean drinking water, give them solar cookers. We've had solar cookers. Where there isn't water, we use other methods of getting the water, and sanitation. So we're improving the health. Everything is bought and made locally. So we help the local economy. Okay. Inside the classroom here, superb. These children are producing superb work. All these children are learning English media. In all the schools I go into, these are English media. And you can see, again, this is before they had the uniform, before some of them are in uniform. But they've got the proper desks and benches. Every time I go, I take as much equipment out with me that is not available there. And these are all using Wilkinson's crayons. But again, people here, I'm very lucky, people will donate them to me. Okay. This is some of my sponsored children. These go to this school. This is the one in Secunderabad that I'm working with. I've worked with them for 7 years now. And they go from the age 3 up to 16, but we're going to try and hang on to them 17, 18. that's the college years out there, so they can then go straight to university. These are all sponsored by friends and people in the UK. There are other children in the school sponsored, but some of the children's parents, if they are able to pay a very, very small amount, they do so. And the school actually does run itself normally, but later in COVID at the moment, come back at the end to that. Situation is very, very serious. This girl, she became 16, and I was her parents had set up an arranged marriage. I was absolutely determined that they were not going to marry her. She's incredibly bright, biology, superb at biology. So I paid for her college fees for 2 years, managed to get her through, and she did incredibly well. Wanted to go to university. Dad had fallen off a roof, broken his back. Mum was looking after them. Tremendous pressure from extended family. Unfortunately, they married her, but at least she was 18. And they did say, the family said she could continue to study. Now, whether she will or not, I don't know. You have to remember, in a way, that, you know, much as we'd like to do, you can only do what we can actually do, which actually work with the people, because you've got to go with the customs, you've got to go with the way. All I hope I can do is show them there is another way. They try to influence them, try to help them, work with them. And this young lady, I say I want to come back, and I just hope that she will be able to continue. But at least she's now got 2 years college, so she will be able to get a job other than working as a help in a home or some really menial task. Okay. In Kerala, the women that we took the water to, again, we noticed that they really had nothing. When they were not working in the fields and the crops were all in, they had nothing. But they got the hand skills, and they were making superb garments with hand skills. And we asked, what do you want? So we set up with sewing machines, and they start with the help. We put in 2 teachers, left 2 teachers, with the help of the local Rotary Club there, which we work very closely with, to ensure that this was continuing. So they're now making clothes. They made clothes for their own families. They were then making excess things, so they're able to sell them. It's continued from the last 4 or 5 years. They've now, the next group have been teaching the made to get sewing machines for a few more ladies. So these people have been teaching those ladies, and we've now got quite a cooperative up and running, and they've got a very, very lucrative business. But it's not only given them some money, but it's also given them pride in themselves, and it's empowering the women to do something, because before they were totally reliant on the men in the families. And this is what we try and do all the time. We go into local hospitals, and was a maternity ward. And again, you can see the conditions in this ward. The staff do an incredible job with very little equipment. This lady, this is the baby that's just born to this lady, and she was really ready to go back almost the same day into the fields. And these women are amazing, as we've already heard. We've done a lot of work in part of Nizamabad, which is a very rural area, old people's home. And one guy had set up, and he'd collected these elderly people that had actually been abandoned on the roadside. And this was the conditions. And I got very angry with the local Rotarians and said, what on earth are you doing? And before I left, they had completely whitewashed the walls, cleaned it all up, bedding. People had nothing. And when I asked, how do you wash? What do you do? They used a hose pipe out in the yard. Now, this was men and women in the same place. And I think, there is nothing worse. So we managed to give them a solar heater, a washing machine, set her in a proper cook. And at least there were only about 15 people there. And when I went back later in the year, all the work had been done. But this is the plight. But again, as Pat said, nobody ever complains. It's almost so they accept that this is their lot, this is their life. And it's something that is very, very humbling. Okay. Very privileged to get into these tribal villages. And funnily enough, I've worked with them, and the way they are very keen on music and dance was my big thing. Physical education was dance. And when they heard that I'd been teaching the children, I taught the children, so the children said, "Will you come to our home?" I said yes. And once we started to dance, everybody joined in. And I found, even with the young children in the school, it doesn't matter whether you can't speak the language or understand, the power of music and dance within these people. And you just going into their homes, and if they give you something to eat or drink, very careful what you drink. Chai, it's boiling hot, is good, except in a tin mug, which you burn your mouth. But this is going in with them and accepting, even if it's the worst slum in the world. Remember, that is their home, and they are proud of it. And you go, and it's again, it changes your life forever. This beautiful lady here, the tall one, was one of they're not qualified teachers, because in the ashram they haven't got any, but they did get to class 10. She went home, she was with me this day, I'd taken these scarves for them and they were messing about with them. She went home that night. Now, she'd had 2 miscarriages. She was struggling to have a child. That night she was murdered. Her husband put her in a sack, took her to the police station, and reckoned that something had happened to her. That is life in the villages. I was very, very proud of these 2 girls. These are both 14, 15-year-old girls in my school, call it my school. And they did a dance, and they did this dance. And every time the music stopped, it was a message, and it was a message to the world, and it was a message to everybody in that school. Save girl child, stop domestic violence. They did one bit which shook everybody, where they threw a bottle of water into this one's face, which was acid. The thing here is, though, it has given them a voice. We have managed to give them a voice, because they now dare, when they're doing their patterns on the ground, they now dare saying respect women. I spoke to a group of Muslim girls, and the first question they asked me, how do we get our men to respect us? All we can do is talk to them, help them. Again, we do have a Facebook page, Voluntaries Unseen India, which shows me what's happening, what we're doing. I'm very wary at Facebook, but I know it can do a lot of good if it's used well. Again, all donations come through the Rotary Club. I'm very lucky to be able to work with Rotary, but my project is very much me. I garden for people, I make masks, I do anything at all I can to raise money. My whole life now is raising money for this particular school. Again, I've never taken a penny out. I have always paid all my expenses. My husband laughs that it cost us an absolute fortune. If I go into a shop and I see a colouring book, or I see something, I think, oh yeah, India would like that, I buy it. And I buy it with pleasure, because the pleasure it's given me. It's a charity, obviously. Rotary Club of Sherwood Rise India account. We've got our own charity. I've got my own account, which they handle. So it's official, going into India in the official way. And it is just really donations come into me. I make sure they go the other way. And if I made penny, I'll just say about COVID at the moment, what's happened. In India at the moment, a lot of the schools, very low, good schools, but private, because they need to be, a lot of children, even the poorest, want to try and go to a private school. If the people they do not own the land, and they do not own the buildings, unfortunately, those schools have disappeared. They've not been able to pay the rents. The landlords have taken them back. So I fear that when we get back to any sort of normality, those schools will no longer be there. A lot of the children may have disappeared because the construction workers tried to get back to their villages, and a lot starved on the way getting back to the villages. So when I asked Dr. Prasad, my head teacher in the school in Secunderabad, what is the situation? And he said, we don't get anything at all, because they were not below the very, very bottom. The very poorest were getting some rice, some dal. some of the teachers who earn a small amount were not getting anything. They had not been paid since last March. So I've raised the funds, and any way I could. We have paid all 45 staff for the last, well, it'll be a year in March. That school is safe because he owns the building and he owns the land. So hopefully they're thinking that they will be going back into school, maybe some of them in March. Whether they will or not, I don't know. But I know my school is safe. Those 1,500 children are safe. They've helped their families. The teachers have had it. And when I say a teacher, when you think that some of the people that work in the school get paid 2,000 rupees a month, which is about £20, the head teacher with 1,500 children gets the equivalent of £300. And when you think what a head of here in our schools, I'm involved in schools, they earn that, well, a day, if not more. But again, they are wonderful people. I will do everything I can to ensure that these people get the best education, because I feel we can give them shelter, we can give them food, we can give them water, we can keep them alive, but with education, we give them a future, we give them a choice, and we give them a voice. And once the girls and women have got a voice, it will make a difference. It's got to make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Val. As you know, we're doing a project on writing women into history, and that includes women that have influenced us in the past, but maybe nobody knows about, or how how we make sure that women take up their place in the history books going forward. What about your inspiration?
Sorry, I've got a dog. Just can you sort this dog out? Sorry. Yeah, I'm going to, but first of all, I am going to pick somebody that is not really linked with me in India, and I'm then go back to India. And I was in the airport once in Hyderabad, and I picked up a book, and it was called Live Your Dash. Linda Ellis, Live Your Dash. And the poem, your dash is what you do with your life. You have a date of your birth, you have a date when you die, and the dash on the gravestone in the middle is what you've actually done while you've been here. And also she says, her whole thing is make every moment matter. And I picked up the book, and I have used her poem, her very famous poem, every now and then. And it's all about, it doesn't matter about wealth, it doesn't matter about where you come from, it doesn't matter who you are, it's what you actually do with your time. And the last line is when you've turned to dust and people stand, what does your dash actually mean? And I've used that many times with people, and it really makes you stop and think, and that every minute counts. So I think really Linda Ellis has made quite a difference, and in the book she looks at all different aspects that, when you don't look back, don't look backwards, always go forwards, don't think what's happened, don't hold grudges, always move forward, always think positive. And I think that's made a lot of difference to me. Going back really to India again, I've got two people in mind. When I first went to India, we went to the most incredible place, which was just a small group, about 12, 15 children, all HIV positive. And again, not quite so badly now, but then it was very much stigma. Nobody wanted to know, nobody would go near them, nobody. But this particular, we were taken, and this young girl with her mother, they had sold their jewellery. Now, for Indian women to sell their jewellery, and they said they bought a small house, and they set up this house and took in these children to look after them. And they were buying the medication, and we were able to help them in a practical way by taking her into a shop, and we bought a washing machine and a refrigerator and things like that, which are material things which they really desperately needed. But it was just this dedication of this young girl that she wasn't married. She was of marriage age, which was important in her community, that she should be married. And she just really had given her whole life. And again, you know, we sat the children on our knee, we cuddled the children, we looked after, you know, it did not matter. They were up, and they're absolutely beautiful. And my husband then got a Christmas card from them, and it just said, "Terry, we love you." And I think it was absolutely amazing that we were privileged to be able to be part of this, and we know that that's still going, and it's gone from strength to strength. The other one was a very really close friend of mine. We were staying in a very wealthy Rotary family, and the daughter had been made to have an arranged marriage. And it was very, very sad. She'd been to Imperial College here in London. We'd looked after her for a year. Very bright girl. Became the face of Imperial College that year. Went back, worked for Deloitte, super job. And suddenly the family decided, because she was 29, she should be married. The pressure from the immediate family was frightening. I sat there where they sort of showed her off. And my three got married. She didn't want to marry a doctor. She did not want to go to America. She married a doctor. She went to America. And to this day, it's not really been happy, but she has accepted it. Got two lovely boys now, and is happy. Her brother fought against it and married of his choice. And I still see the two of them. They've now got a lovely little boy. I've got nobody from the family has ever spoken to them since. And that really made me more and more determined to do everything I can to help some of these people. And it is just amazing. Those two are Annie Rood and Divya, still in touch always. I stay with them, and it is superb to see them. Her family have come round, but his family will never come round, and it is just so sad. It is beginning to get better, but not in some families, because it's all about communities, and it's very important for communities. And I think that really, Divya influenced me, because for her to stand out against her own family and his family, and she stood her ground, and she was determined that she was going to do what she wanted to do with her life, and she has. And she's had to give up a tremendous amount. When you give up your whole family, it can't be easy, especially not in the very, very close families that they are out there.
I know that many of our viewers will know that Townsend have been campaigning against underage marriage. We haven't liked to interfere, in inverted commas, with arranged marriages because of their cultural links. But we do support those that don't want to be married off, as it were. It's a very fine line sometimes between helping people and interfering in their home lives, isn't it? And I think it's one that you've worked with to find a way of helping rather than directing. I think sometimes we have to be very careful about telling other people how to live their lives. It is very hard. Thank you so much for sharing with me today. I'm sure our viewers will be very absolutely fascinated by it. We'll put the contact details on the website with the program, and I hope that people will get in touch with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.